Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And today we're talking about Perfect Days, directed by Wim Wenders, from a script written by Wenders and Takuma Takasaki. This is another screening organised by Lee at the Mockingbird, for which we're grateful. I didn't know anything about... Well, I googled it just briefly because I didn't know anything about it just before we saw it, and saw that it said it was based on 4 stories, and it's about a toilet cleaner in Japan. The 4 stories thing, I don't actually know really where that comes from. It doesn't play like that. I mean,
No.
that implies that it's episodic, and it's not. But I guess you can see sort of 4 maybe story strands that come together. I'd never seen a Wim Wenders film before.
Really?
And he's been working since the 70s. He's one of the key directors in New German cinema. You know, probably the best known are him, Herzog, Fassbinder. But I've never seen one before, and I didn't really know what to expect of it. You must be familiar with Wenders.
I've seen The Goalkeeper's Fear of the Penalty. I've seen The American Friend, Paris, Texas, Wings of Desire, which was a huge hit, and which in a weird way it made me think of this film, only in that Berlin occupies, such an important role in that film, the way that Tokyo does in this, without knowing anything about it. I mean, he's somebody who was really a crucial filmmaker, I would say, not only in New German cinema of the 70s, but in the 80s, in this international art house wave. I met him.
Okay.
I met him at the Festival de Nouveau Cinéma. He was really kind of extremely tall and very charming. One of those people that asks you questions about you, while you're meant to be kind of talking to him. But I must say that over the last 20 years or more, I don't think I've seen any of his films. So this is a welcome surprise as well.
So yeah, like I say, this it's interesting how this film gets started. You see on Wikipedia, Wenders was invited to Tokyo shortly after pandemic precautions for COVID ended to observe the Tokyo Toilet Project, in which Japanese public toilets were redesigned across Shibuya by creators invited from around the world. And it was envisioned, by the producers at least, that he would make kind of short films based on this, but a feature film came out of it. And we see some of these public toilets, in particular the one that kind of really makes an impression is the one with the frosted glass, the electric glass that turns on when you lock the door. But the film is about this character, Hirayama, who's in his 50s, looks like. He doesn't...
He looks to me like he's older than that, but...
Okay, but I'm going to say how old the actor is.
He looks to me like to be in his early 60s or something.
Bloody hell, he's 68.
Right.
Wow.
So.
Well, he looks good for it either way, no matter whether it's his 60s or 50s. But yeah, he's an aging man, he's greying and stuff, and he lives alone, and he looks after these plants in his small sort of house. And he drives around cleaning these public toilets all day. He has a young assistant who we see is much more talkative, and he's trying to get off with this girl and so on. But this guy just has his routine, and we see his routine over a number of days. It's not shot in a kind of, some films really, really emphasise routine. And this one doesn't do that, but you get the sense of the routine very clearly.
Yeah.
It's a real kind of slice of life thing, right? Plot is not heavy. There's lots of plot, but it's not about that. It's about observation of character. What you said about Wenders just now, saying you met him and he was asking questions about me and I was supposed to be interviewing him, is very much like you get the sense of this is an observer's eye on this guy, And I can't say I was like, it's not rip-roaring entertainment, but it's very absorbing. And I love the eye on the man and the eye on the kind of society that he's in, that it has.
I loved it. Yeah, I did have moments where I was looking at my watch just because it's one of those films where I couldn't see where it was going, right? So, and my response to kind of that is just to see, well, kind of where are we? And I mean, I didn't know how long the film was either, but I figured, it'll probably be 2.5 hours. So where are we now, right? Like. And so I think there were a couple of times where I looked at my watch just, for that reason. But it wasn't because I was bored. And I really loved the whole feel of the film. Yeah, I mean, it is just about a man making a very orderly life for himself, taking pride in his work. Yeah, he does it very well. Yeah, he's absorbed by it. The young assistant says he's the only man he knows who, has developed his own gadgets to do the job better, right?
Yeah, he seems to have brought his own equipment and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I kind of identified with it in a way because, when I was a younger man thinking what kind of a life, did I want and would I make for myself, it actually kind of never occurred to me that, I could have a job doing what I wanted. So I always imagined myself as somebody who'd probably be doing a very working class job and pursuing my books and my movies and,
in your free time.
In my free time. And this is a little bit what this kind of shows, though it's a more organic life than I imagined for myself. He does take pride in his job. He does it with pride and with humor and with respect.
It seems to suit him as well.
Yeah.
Like that orderliness that you talk about. You see something similar between, or it's almost kind of meditative. The time he can spend cleaning the toilets and getting it right and so on. You get a feeling of that to an extent, I think. And then you see that in his home life as well. It's just the way he organises his life and goes through his routine,
I like the way that the film lets you in, which is often the way that people kind of let you in to their lives, right? Which is not, the major revelations that you often see in films, but kind of a little observation, a little anecdote, a perception of something that opens up a dimension into this person's life. And in this film, we get a few things, right? So when he visits the temple, on his day off. So, I mean, he's a man of a certain age. You can see that he's got a life that he likes, but that is also one that's full of sadness and regret. And the things that kind of reveal that are the visit to the temple, the revelation that he does have family, that there was an incident with his father. The sister says he's not as violent as he used to be.
He doesn't act the way he used to now that he's kind of losing his mind, and you should go see him. And he doesn't say anything. He so rarely says things, but you see it in his face. No, I'm not going to do that. And I mean, that scene is what I thought. That's my favourite scene in the whole film because in so few interactions, just a few seconds, you understand completely what has made this man the way he is in some ways. Just the idea that why he hasn't seen his family, why he hasn't seen his sister, who he clearly is capable of reconnecting with. He sees her and he's not upset to see her.
There's affection between them.
There's affection, right? He hugs her and he means it. But you also feel like the reason that I've been staying away from her is I have this whole family history that he shuts himself off from. You get the feeling. It just kind of contextualises that so beautifully and makes sense of this quiet, orderly man going about his business. I mean, I don't think it says like everything about him. I don't think it's not like it says this is everything about who he is, but it enriches his character so much.
Well, it's also the way that things are revealed by people to one. They never reveal everything, but kind of they just tell a story or an anecdote, or you see them do something that reveals an area of their life that you hadn't noticed or perceived before.
Yeah.
And, that helps you understand them better. Of course, you never understand anyone fully. And I like that the film works in those ways. That kind of, there are kind of these moments that just deepen our understanding of who this person is, where he's at now, maybe even why, though not fully why, right? So you get the sense that this is a man of a much higher class who's come down in the world, who things have happened to. He's clearly like an educated man. Someone at the bar refers to him as an intellectual, and he laughs it off, right? But he's someone who finds meaning in life through his books, his music, and his gardening and his photography, and his job. Like kind of that anchors, and it's a routine, and kind of it's like there was something in the Wikipedia page about, or an interview with Wenders or something that I just glanced through before the podcast, where it was the actor, an interview with the actor saying, well, God is everywhere, including in toilets, right? Like, yeah. So I thought that was lovely. And then the visit with the temple and the moment at the end where he goes by the alcohol and the cigarettes are the moments which hint at a previous life of alcoholism, or using alcohol as a crutch, or that kind of addiction and so on must have played a role in his past. It's a little thing, but it hints at that. So I thought that was just beautiful, really.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful scene between when he goes and buys that stuff and goes down the river. And to me, I know exactly what you mean about it being a hint to this, a light one, but I mean, I didn't take it that. I took it that because also he buys a pack of cigarettes and he clearly doesn't know how to smoke. So I took the whole thing as a kind of, it's almost like it might be his first time ever trying to act out. That's kind of how it played to me. But I could see why it would hint at a past as well. But then when the guy comes in who he's seen in this emotional embrace with the woman he likes, essentially, and that's why he's down there, and he explains all this stuff about himself. It's from someone who doesn't open up at all to someone who's opening up immediately to essentially a stranger. It is a stranger. The way in which he accepts it and he starts to make light out of it, because this guy's revealing some awful stuff about himself, that he's this woman's ex-husband of 7 years. So it's not like he was getting off with the woman he likes, and that he has cancer, and that's why he's back there to make some reconnection before he dies.
To apologise, he says.
So, he says to apologise. Oh no, that's not quite right. He says to thank her. No, that's not quite right either. He says, I just had to see her. Which is all it really needs to be, right? And you get this again. You get this feeling of this guy. And I mean, you watch that scene going, I wonder how this will develop. I suppose it could have cut off at any point because you don't really know where these scenes will go. But the way in which it goes into this sort of play with the shadows, you go, well, where has this come from? And how inspired it? Like, I would never have imagined. And it's not like a crazy thing, but it's this flight of fantasy in the middle of, you haven't had much of that in this film, right? You've had kind of a little bit of oddness and surprise here and there. You had that moment where the young girl kisses him on the cheek for playing the tape, and it's a jump and a surprise and a laugh, but it's not kind of crazy out of the ordinary. And
but it's patterned, because it's full of moments like that hint at connections, at love, at kindness, right? So the moment with the autistic boy who likes to touch the ears, the connection with the people at the bars, the moment where he rescues the young boy in the toilet, the mother comes all distraught and doesn't even thank him, but the boy
waves.
There's the homeless person who's a bit batty, who's always in the background and who he always acknowledges and bows to, and they recognize each other. Right, so, and I think all of that connects to the phrase that he says, well, we all live in our own, the world has many worlds, we all live in our own, and sometimes they connect, right, though not always. So we also see moments of that these worlds are connecting, right? So you can imagine that homeless person is living in his own bubble, but there are moments of connection with him. Right. The same with the young child who he rescues in the toilet. The mother doesn't even acknowledge him, but the boy waves goodbye. So kind of those are different worlds, but there are moments where they choose to connect. Also moments where they choose to disconnect, like with the sister. Because she goes away in her chauffeur-driven car. Though, he leaves the door open for the niece, right? But you get the sense that, for all the affection and love between the sister and brother, they are committed to their different worlds, So I thought all of that was lovely. And I thought the pace of the film was lovely, and the structure of it, right? Because as you said, initially, you get this daily sense of cleaning, yeah, but the patterning is loose,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, so it kind of moves in different directions, and you're allowed to see kind of, different things. I at the beginning I thought, oh, is this going to take place during a day or then during a week? Yeah, but the film kind of kept both repeating and opening up in interesting and slightly different directions.
Yeah, so like on his daily routine, you get the sense of how it starts, how he goes through his work day, and how he finishes his day. And we see him, going to a bar, a restaurant where he's recognised and he's seen.
The baths.
He has the usual, the baths. We see obviously his routine at work. We see some of the toilets that he cleans multiple times, and of course we see him in the morning, waking up early, putting the things from his shelf in his pockets in the same order, watering the plants and so on, and then reading a book before bed. And we see all these, and we know the pattern of his day, but we don't see them all every day. Right?
Yeah.
We dip in and out, and sometimes he maybe doesn't go to the bath, and sometimes maybe he doesn't go to the restaurant, which is why we're not seeing those. But the film's not committed to showing us like every single detail, right? But we get the sense, and it shows us kind of what he needs to do. And it starts off in a more regimented way to give us that sense, and then it gets looser as it goes on, and later on, kind of second half of the film, you see a lot less of him cleaning the toilets, for instance. You see more of the rest of his life. The toilets is kind of really structures the start of the film.
Yes.
And it's much less committed to showing you that side of his life, his work life, later on.
Mm. So, one of the phrases in the film is that everything changes, and you could see how this daily routine, this neatness, this orderliness is also a way of kind of ordering reality, of getting, having a grip on it, of like not kind of going crazy in the world, of having some control over how your day is, right? So that sense of routine is very important, the orderliness, the neatness, the way that things are done, which is always the same, right? I kind of, that builds a kind of a foundation, for what is clearly kind of a man in the process of change, kind of. So when you say that at the beginning we have this routine and then at the end it's less important, it's because also things are changing. He's meeting people, he's developing relationships, he feels a kind of longing that must be new, or if not new, something that hadn't happened for a long time, with the woman. He reestablishes a connection with his niece. Those are all clearly important things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also just the disruptions to the routine and the new things are the more interesting things to show. It's where the film's attention is, because it's so interesting. And but it is about the, as you say, disruption and the newness of what he's going through. And of course, there's also every night. Well, not every night, because the routine is not. The film is not showing us everything, but every night he dreams, and we see, right? And these films, these dreams are in black and white, and what you're saying about kind of the ordering and the neatness and stuff is not there in the dreams, right? The images are translucent. They appear over the top of one another. There's imagery of nature that we see him shooting. So we see him photographing nature, in particular these shots that he likes taking, pointing up at the canopy of trees over this park where he eats lunch, and when he gets these back, we see these black and white photographs, and he throws the ones away that don't work, and he keeps the ones that he likes, and then we see this kind of imagery is what's coming out in his dreams. The dreams were shot, I understand, by Donata Wenders, Wim's wife, who's a photographer, and you get this, it's really interesting because it's not like the dreams, like dreams. It's not like that thing of dreams kind of encoding messages and that sort of thing, but it's like the day kind of, it's like it plays back to him in some way, and what's been important in that day comes out in these dreams. So you get images of his niece, for instance, and because she's just jumped back into his life out of nowhere, and that sort of thing. And they're kind of beautiful way to sort of, because the film doesn't show, as you were saying, it doesn't show like a week or whatever, but it does take us from one day into another using these dreams. It kind of bookends things in that way.
And that connects with the photos that he takes every day of the sun streaming through the tree branches, right, which create a kind of shadow. Then there's the shadowy dreams. And then there's that whole conversation at the end where they ask, are shadows darker when they overlap?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which again, is a conversation in itself, and it's playful, but it's also metaphoric, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of those things are kind of woven through kind of rather systemically in the narrative in a way that kind of, enriches it as it goes along. I thought it was very beautiful.
It's interesting what you say about things changing, because obviously we do see things change through the film, but that conversation about the shadows, which feels so much like a kind of culmination of themes, the way they're having that conversation in a metaphorical way, they try it, right? So that's the thing. Like, I kind of thought, the question the guy has of when shadows overlap, do they get darker? It'll be like the scene will end on that interesting, intriguing question. And he goes, fuck it, let's try, right? So they go and play. And what they find is that they don't. And it doesn't make sense that they don't to them, and that's what they express to each other. And he says, like, nothing's changing. It doesn't make sense that nothing's changing, which is really interesting, because, like, how much, that kind of, apply that to the whole film, like, how much do you see change? Well, it's small, it's incremental, but, I don't know, like, how much is different from the end to the start, I don't know. But then, clearly, the events of the film have had a massive effect, even kind of subtly, on the guy, because of that final shot where he's in the car driving, listening to "Feeling Good" by Nina Simone, and it's a long take. It's all close upon him of halfway between crying his eyes out and beaming with happiness. Kind of amazing way to end the film. That, like, it's kind of it's unclear, or it's up to interpretation. The effect of everything that's happened on him, but like, the fact that it's had such a profound effect is what we're getting there at the end. We've seen nothing like that from him before in the film. Even when he saw his sister, and this kind of past, you get the feeling has come back. I mean, I suppose to some extent you've got that with the niece, but then seeing the sister is a whole thing in itself. You haven't seen a great outpouring of emotion. He's bowed his head, and you feel the sense of reflection in him, and then he hugs her, and you feel how important that hug is. This is someone to whom a small gesture becomes very big.
Yes.
But then, on his own in the car at the end, he's just in floods. And it's really a remarkable way to end, actually. I loved it.
What do you make of the use of music?
Well, the music's fantastic, right? It's been well chosen and well sourced, and there are loads of really good hits there, and it's lovely to hear them. So there's that. I thought the most interesting thing about the music, in some sense, was that it was the idea of cassettes, because it's played on cassettes. But that's separate to the songs in themselves. I suppose I didn't make anything in particular of the songs that were chosen, or how they were used.
No. I did. I mean, I thought they were beautiful choices of a particular period, right? I would say it's all 70s music. Could be wrong. Yeah.
70s, 80s, and I think they mention that because that's where his cassettes come from, and they're talking about selling them.
Yeah, though, all the ones I recognize, like Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl, I mean, I would say, I don't know, late 60s.
60s as well, Nina Simone,
so it's Patti Smith, right? They're all like kind of 70s, and they're all songs of a particular kind. They're kind of like singer songs, or kind of rather than say like band songs. So you get Lou Reed, kind of.
That's interesting.
And they're songs of feeling, and which the singing itself expresses feeling. I mean, I think, part of the Brown Eyed Girl song is just the tone of Van Morrison's voice is as significant to the song as like kind of the music or the lyrics, really. Likewise, I think with Nina Simone, or indeed with Lou Reed, right? It's kind of I mean, in the Lou Reed song, obviously the lyric and the pace of the music is important, but there is something about the tone of his voice and the intonation and the phrasing. Yeah. I thought it was very beautifully chosen, very expressive. Also a way of indicating a layer of feeling. I mean, here's this man who's been attached not only to the cassettes, but these particular songs for like 40 years or 50 years, right? Like, and that he keeps playing and that he won't sell. Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of that are somehow like cornerstones of his life as well, that express something about him. And I thought that was interesting in a weird way in relation to the toilets, which are, you know, really modern, really clean, really beautiful.
He's the reason they're clean.
Well,
I know what you mean.
no, well, again, I'm not very familiar, but I do think that, I mean, someone was saying that if the same film would have been made in London, it would have been a horror film. I mean, there are kind of different levels of acceptable hygiene in public toilets, ostensibly, in Japan than here. But what I meant is that, you know, kind of these are all, or they seem to be, yeah, and from what you were saying at the beginning, that they were part of an art installation project, but they're all kind of architects, new, so they're meant to like stand out and be admired, right? Architecturally and hygienically and kind of aesthetically, right? But there is still something kind of functional and antiseptic about them, that, you know, the songs are the opposite of functional. And yeah, I mean, you need a cassette player, only he has one. Yeah, kind of all the people he runs into that love his music ask, is it on Spotify?
Yeah, his niece wants to know if it's on Spotify, and then she and the other young girl, the girl who kisses him, don't know how to put a tape in the car.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So I think there's that contrast as well between the old, you know, and the modern.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge, and his camera is a 25-year-old type camera, uses film. His car has to be that old because he's got a tape player in it. So yeah, we've got cassette technology, reasonably old camera technology, old phone technology, has a flip phone, which have not been around since the iPhone, basically. And then the film itself is shot in full frame, which is essentially antiquated. It's not the normal way in which most films are made these days. It's not widescreen, which I think, I mean, it's a small kind of connection, but I think that is a connection. I mean, I don't know Wim Wenders' other work. I don't know how often he shoots this way, but it seems to connect in the mildest way with that kind of with the appeal of old technologies.
Just want to look up. I wanted to check whether it was he or Herzog who made Pina, the Pina Bausch documentary, but it's not listed here as his filmography. So
his filmography does include documentaries later on, I think.
Well, let me look at that.
Pina, yeah, 2011.
Yeah,
in 3D.
Because that was interesting. That was very beautiful, you know. And that was kind of, you know, so one of the things about Wenders is that he's also kind of avant-garde, yeah, that like, you know, he is someone who's interested in the arts in general. And the film of Pina is very, very beautiful. You know, it is kind of about Pina Bausch and about kind of her choreographic work, and, you know, the idea of showing it in 3 dimensions is you could show movement in 3 dimensions. And that I loved very much. And also it felt very, very tender towards her.
Yeah, I think I read that he said that around this time he would only shoot in 3D from now on. He was like taken by it, and obviously that's not happened. And
No.
3D, despite the renaissance brought on by Avatar and new technology, has since fallen away, and we don't see it very much now. But he was one director who seemed to be head over heels with it. Like, I get this, I love it, I have to work in it from now on. And I think he said, as you were saying, it's to do with the way you can show movement. I think he was going to show. I think he was supposed to shoot the ring cycle, and he would only do that if it could be in 3D, and that it fell apart because of that.
Actually, it's so interesting because now looking at his documentaries, because I was saying that I had seen so many of his films up to the 90s, and then, you know, kind of I didn't see very much until now. But now I realize that actually I had seen all these documentaries. Lightning Over Water is his documentary on Nicholas Ray, Tokyo Ga, the Buena Vista Social Club, which I imagine even you have seen that.
I haven't seen it, though I know of it.
Okay. And Pina. So you know, those are all films like from 1980 to the present, really. So Pina is a decade ago now. So actually I've seen more. If I include his documentary work, I've seen more than I thought.
I mean, he's unbelievably prolific. This is his 23rd feature narrative film as director, 24th if you include one that he did some work in, and then he's got his shorts and docs and TV on top of that.
It's not prolific if you compare it to Fassbinder, who did...
Everything's a competition with you, Jose.
It's not, but I'm just kind of developing that point. Because I mean, didn't Fassbinder do? Let's see. He did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He did 11 films in 1 year.
That's too many.
A lot of them were really great, Anyway, when I think prolific, I think Fassbinder.
Right, okay.
I think, 20 films in like 60 years is not that many.
It's like saying Agatha Christie's not prolific. She didn't write as many as Barbara Cartland.
No, come on, that's not the same. No,
but a film every couple of years, plus all the other work that you're doing, that's prolific's a reasonable word for that, I think.
Okay, well,
just not as prolific as 11 in 1 year. Who does that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, kind of, I love this film.
I liked it, more than I kind of thought I did at the time as well. I was like you, kind of checking the watch, or I would have done had I had one. And it was at points due to a little bit of boredom and going, okay, where is it going next? But you kind of stuck it. I mean, also we looked up beforehand, and I did see that it was 2 hours long, and it felt longer, I thought.
Yeah, well, I went to look, but I couldn't find it. So I
looked on the same page you did, and just looked at a bit
of
the page you didn't.
You've got a better eye.
123 minutes.
I missed that. So, and then they told us the film started, so I just let go of it. So actually, I didn't know how long the film was. But I don't see that as a problem. I mean, the wonderful thing about seeing films in the theater is I'm quite content to just let it wash over you, right? Like I do again, and maybe it's a personal problem with watching things on television, how I personally watch things on television. But, I'm sure had I been watching it at home, I would have put it on pause, I would have made coffee, I would have gone to the loo. The 2 hour film would have taken me 6 hours to watch, and I would have lost a lot in doing that. But, if I'm in the theater and, there's a little bit of a stretch where I don't know where it's going and that seems a bit boring, kind of I just let it wash over me and kind of I'll have a view by the end. But actually, that in itself doesn't transform the view at the moment. Yeah.
No, sure. I'm not complaining that it's 2 hours long, or I'm not even complaining that much that it felt as long as it did. Although I do think that that's the experience, right? You're going to talk about your experience.
Sure.
And I thought sometimes, at points, this is a bit slow.
Yeah. I mean, kind of Argyle didn't feel slow at all, and it was still crap.
You thought it was long as hell. I loved Argyle. It was great fun. We're not going to bring back Argyle. I'll defend that film to the day I die.
All right. I think it's a very beautiful film. It's a film also that, when you think, it's a film that makes you feel and it makes you think. And what more could you ask for? Yeah.
And I want to just briefly mention the star of the film, who, we mentioned his age and we mentioned a couple of his moments, but we haven't mentioned him. Kōji Yakusho is his name, who I didn't know.
He's like a figure in Japanese
cinema. He is. I mean, I was just like, what do I mention from his Wikipedia page? But he's got a lot of films in there. And, he's got enough to have a Wikipedia page on English Wikipedia, which is one thing for a Japanese actor. And yeah, I mean, he's marvellous. He also won he won Best Actor at Cannes Film Festival
for this film.
And you can certainly see why. So he's wonderful and worth it just for him. I mean, it's in those moments. So much of the film is, so much of his performance in the film is very simple. He's not doing very much. The character's not doing very much, but it's in these moments where he reacts or something happens and something occurs to bring a reaction from him. So that's where he kind of shines.
It's all in the eyes. It's like so much of great movie acting, right? It's all in the eyes. It's just little, minimal gestures and, what the eyes convey. Because he doesn't say much, he doesn't have many words. So it's all in his look, really.
Yeah. and his presence. He has a presence that you
Yeah.
can't quite quantify, but he has it, and you want to look at him on screen. So he's wonderful. Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we highly recommend. Thank you very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.